Chapter 1. William. I was almost home, less than 5 minutes from the farmhouse. At the end of town, Honeysuckle Hills goes from charming little townhouses to vast fields suddenly. The orchard is immense, just row upon row of fruit trees, all precisely lined up, and as soon as the tree line breaks, I know I'm at the edge of my land and I can see my house. But today I have to pull over, because there's a damn dog in the road. A little blue sports car struck it. I saw the dog ambling across the highway before the car tore around a corner without looking, clipped the poor animal and kept driving. People are assholes. The dog ended up on the side of the road, so of course now I have to stop and see if it's alright. I'm not a veterinarian, but I've worked on farms my entire life and I know a thing or two about livestock medicine. I'm confident it'll convert to a dog. When I pull over and get out to approach the beast, one thing immediately becomes apparent: this isn't a dog. It's a wolf. A massive, gorgeous wolf with luxurious golden fur and amber-colored eyes. I can feel my breath catch in my chest. This might be the most beautiful living creature I've ever seen. He's conscious, at least mostly, and I can see a few wounds from where the car hit him. I approach slowly, hoping he's at least injured enough not to bite me. "Hey, buddy," I say in a soothing tone, arms outstretched and hands open in front of me. "Let's get you off the road, okay?" I don't know why I'm talking to a wild animal, but the thing is staring up at me, just blinking calmly, and maybe I'm crazy, but I feel confident enough to touch him. I crouch to pick him up and try not to get distracted by how thick and soft his fur is, or my sudden desire to bury my face in it and never come out. Touching this wolf feels like it's creating a direct feedback loop inside me, pumping soothing serotonin through my body. God, he's so soft. The wolf remains calm as I gather him into my arms, groaning a little as I stand because hey, I'm not in my 20s anymore. I still have alpha strength though, so it's not too difficult to get him settled in the back of my Range Rover and take him with me to the house. He's still calm when I get him back out. He's actually just radiating passivity in a way I didn't know wolves could even do. He smells like a content omega, and it makes my urge to take care of him overpowering. Protect, 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 my alpha brain screams at me. I settle on the living room floor, pulling a throw off the couch to use as a makeshift bed for him. He's still not trying to get up, but he's at least propping himself up on his front paws. And those beautiful, inhumanly golden eyes are still watching me. He looks bright and alert, and I can see an almost frightening level of intelligence and awareness in his expression. Murmuring to him while I make him comfortable, I just babble random soothing words as I stroke his fur. I quickly grab a few towels from the kitchen to clean up his wounds, but it looks like they've already stopped actively bleeding. My body is pumping out protective alpha scent like nobody's business, even though this is just an animal. I don't have the energy to rein it in. Once he seems stable and comfortable, I sit on the floor beside him, one hand resting comfortably on his head, scratching him behind the ears. I'm not sure how I've gone from quick drive into town to injured, wild animal in my living room, but here we are. And my body is telling me I don't have any choice in the matter. I need to take care of this beautiful wolf. Chapter 2. Jack. I can't stop staring at this man. He's handsome, but it's more than that. I'm not normally the omega to go all weak at the knees at the first sign of broad shoulders and a strong jawline. I'm no damsel in distress. But something about him is drawing me in. Maybe it's the genuine concern he showed when he came over to me on the road, or the gentleness of his large, muscular hands when he was picking me up. Or maybe it's the delicious alpha scent rolling off of him in waves, smelling like rosemary and fireplaces and home. Whatever it is, I'm hooked. So, I let myself stare. The man has dark hair, kept short and practical in a way that isn't surprising considering he seems to live on an orchard, but long enough to be messy. It looks like sex hair, and it's begging to have my fingers running through it. He has sharp, ice blue eyes, tan skin and an intoxicating pout to his lips. Oh, and the sharp jawline I mentioned is covered in dark stubble I want to run my tongue over. My human tongue, even, as soon as I bounce back enough from these injuries to have the strength to shift. He's sitting on the floor beside me, scratching my ears in a way that's sending shivers of pleasure through my body. As soon as he picked me up from the road, it's like he hasn't been able to stop touching me. I don't know if he's even aware he's doing it. But the tenderness in his eyes when he looks at me, the soft tone of his voice as he says soothing things, they almost make me feel like he can see the real me. I'm not a normal wolf. That's impossible, though. No one knows about shifters. This is just some weird, cross-species physiology situation that's making our sense match so perfectly both of our bodies are screaming to be connected. I might as well enjoy it. It's a hell of a lot better than lying on the side of the road by myself until I heal enough to shift back to human form. Shifter healing is pretty formidable, but even I have my limits. It'll just be a day or two, then I can shift. I'm sure of it. In the meantime, I guess I'll have to sit here and try to resist every urge I have to turn around and present for this beautiful alpha until he pins me and knots me like I need. I bet he has a thick cock and a beautiful knot. I can't stop myself from trying to picture it. Before I know it, the smell of arousal is wafting off of me. The man notices the scent, I can tell. His brow furrows a little, and he steals a glance at me. But he keeps on stroking my fur and scratching my ears, so he can't be repulsed. At some point, he turned on the TV, and it seems like he's settled down to sit with me for a decent amount of time. I'll have to control my scent, but it's hard. There's just something about this man. We sit for a while in companionable silence, but my instinct is still growling at me. It's irresistible. My body is screaming at me to submit, to present, to groom him and take care of him, to do anything I can to show him he's not just an alpha, he's my alpha. I'm just not sure why. I give in to the urge just enough to shuffle forward and put my head in his lap. The movement startles him at first, but then he looks down at me, a quizzical tilt to his handsome head but a soft smile on his lips. I settle my chin on his leg and only let myself nuzzle a little. Maybe he thinks it's some normal, animal instinct to show gratitude for his care. As long as he keeps touching me, I don't care. The man takes a deep breath in and then exhales. A wave of contentment rolls off of him, and that home smell is back. This time I'm a little closer to him, and I scent him properly. There's something there, something I can't put my paw on. So, I let my nose do its thing. He looks down at me again, still with a soft, fond expression. He smells happy. I smell happy. Hell, we almost smell like we match. And that's the moment it hits me, the thing I couldn't quite figure out. He smells like he's already mine. My true mate. Chapter 3. William. I've had a wolf living in my front room for 2 days now. I mean, everyone I know is a farm person, so they would mostly understand. It's not the first wild animal I've recuperated. But it is the first animal I've had this kind of bond with. I can't stop myself from staring at him, basically all of the time. He's just so majestic. He's healed a lot in the past 2 days, more quickly than I expected, and I've spent almost the entire afternoon watching him get up and move around my home, as if it's already his space. His body is lithe and strong. Every movement he makes is graceful, and he's maintained a calm demeanor throughout, never looking at me as a threat. His amber eyes still shine at me with a self-possessed, intelligent sort of confidence. Sometimes it feels like if I just listen closely enough, he'll speak. Which is ridiculous, obviously. I couldn't help myself from taking the 2 days off of work and getting my staff to do the bulk of the work out in the fields. I can answer emails and fulfill orders through my laptop while sitting on the couch. I know I should get back out there, but the first time that beautiful creature hopped up on the sofa and curled up next to me, smelling like petrichor and true contentment, I was hooked. I'm not going anywhere. He's sitting in the same spot right now, and I can't even look at the TV because I'm too busy studying the subtle difference in shades across his thick, tawny fur. But then, someone knocks on my front door for the first time in 2 days. It's jarring, and it definitely snaps me out of my happy little bubble. Have I really spent 2 days just gazing at a wolf? A wolf who isn't acting anything like a wild animal, and seems to have made himself at home? I shake the confusion out of my head as I stand to answer the door. On the other side of it is Matty Jacobson. He's a big, burly bear of a man, but you wouldn't know it from his disposition. He moved here maybe 5 years ago from Finland and started an apiary on the land next to mine. At first glance, I assumed I was going to have to put up with the normal territorial nonsense that comes from living next to another alpha, but as soon as I got a whiff of him I realized he's all omega. He's incredibly passionate about organic produce and just wants a quiet place in the world to raise his bees. Bees which have been a lifesaver for my fruit trees and their pollination needs. William. He gives me a broad smile when he sees me and starts speaking to me in his soft voice with just a slight, lilting Finnish accent. I haven't seen you in days, brother. I was getting worried. Is everything all right? I stutter a little as I try to find the words to explain I'm more than all right, but without sounding like a crazy person. I don't get the chance, though, because we're both cut off by the sound of a low, threatening growl. My wolf is on the couch, standing, hackles raised. Matty sees him too and raises his hands in a sign of submission. It's okay, buddy, I soothe as I walk back and put my hand on his back. This is Matty, he's a friend. No danger. I realize too late I could easily have gotten my fingers chomped by touching him, but my body seems incapable of considering the beast a threat. As it is, he seems soothed by my touch. The growl rumbles to a stop and he sits, although it's clear from his body language he's still on high alert. Not to mention, he's pumping out waves upon waves of mine pheromones like I've never seen an animal do before, especially not a wild one. Come in, Matty, I urge, as he looks at me with slightly wide, chocolate brown eyes. It's okay, he's been very docile so far. Matty takes one heavy step at a time into the room, keeping his hands up and not making eye contact with my wolf. Shit, the wolf, not mine, as he goes. William, I'm not here to judge, he says in a quiet voice, but why is there a big-ass wolf in your living room? It's all I can do to stop myself from laughing. Why is there a big-ass wolf in my living room? And why do I keep feeling so possessive over him? I'm already having to resist the urge to keep Matty from getting anywhere near him, and I'm pretty sure if Matty were an alpha I wouldn't have even let him in the door. As I answer, the broad-shouldered man sits, squeezing himself into one of my normal human-sized armchairs. I don't even know, Matty, I say with a sigh. I saw him get hit by a car a couple days ago and I couldn't just leave him, but now he's almost well and I can't bear the thought of sending him back to where he came from. I ignore his raised eyebrow and power through, determined to unload to someone before I finally crack. I expected him to be scared and feral, but from the second he got here it just felt like home. Like he belongs here. He even smells like he belongs here, and I've never seen an animal that can do that before. So, I dunno, maybe I have a pet wolf now? I grind my teeth, something about referring to him as a pet feels so off and inappropriate. Okawaye, Matty says after a pause, well, he seems to have calmed down now, so am I okay to talk to you about what I really came over for? Shit, yes, I'm sorry, I say, reminding myself for the 1000th time I'm not the center of the universe. Go ahead. I take a seat on the couch, hoping I can continue to soothe the wolf, but all he's doing is staring at Matty. He even jumps nimbly from the couch and takes up a guard dog position at my feet. The beekeeper goes ahead, talking about a new business that's supposedly opening soon. We had assumed it was planned to be a winery, although they weren't really buying enough land, but Matty tells me it's going to be a leader. How trendy. This is great news for him. He's already in talks with the owner about supplying them with honey to make the mead, but he wanted to get a read from me on how much I wanted to be involved as well. I'm too distracted to really focus on it, because my eyes are on the wolf most of the time, but overall it sounds like a good idea. As Matty gets more animated, more and more of his natural milk and honey scent fills the room. It's neutral and emotionless, apart from maybe a little excitement, but it's there. I can tell my scent is getting overshadowed by it. The wolf seems to be more and more agitated, pacing in front of me and whining, but it would be weird for the two things to be connected, right? He's probably just anxious about there being a stranger in the house for so long. I'm doing my best to focus on my business partner, but I'm distracted by the mounting tension swirling around the wolf and me. He keeps sniffing at my leg as he paces. He'll sit for a second, but then pop back up like he can't control himself. The whining intensifies, and I decide it's probably time for Maddie to leave. I try to answer his questions quickly and then find a polite way to shoo him out of the house, but he seems to understand. He hits me with an empathetic smile and then stands to shake my hand in parting, like we normally do. Apparently, this is the last straw for the wolf. His scent becomes a chaotic jumble of need and possession and want, and for just a second I'm worried he might try to bite my friend. But biting doesn't seem to be the thing he was building towards. As I stand and reach out toward Maddie's hand, there's an unusual, warm sensation covering one of my legs. I can't quite place it until I look down and see what it is. The wolf is peeing on me. No reservations, no hesitation, just standing there with one leg cocked, holding eye contact with Maddie and dousing me in a stream of urine. I'm too mortified at the shocked expression on my neighbor's face to even consider the other thoughts are suddenly whirling in my mind. Thoughts like, God, that feels so warm and soothing, but why does it smell like pine trees and home? And I can't remember the last time anything cared about me enough to claim me, even if it is just an animal. I don't even care anymore that it's weird, I just take a deep breath in and let it relax me. I'm sorry. As you can see, I'm a little indisposed, but I'll call you later to go over the details, I say as Maddie backs out of the room. He mutters a polite goodbye and then slips through the door, closing it behind him. Finally, we're alone. I know I should clean up, but something about the smell in the air makes me want to wait. The wolf is looking up at me and still whining, curling in on himself protectively at my feet. He seems to want some affection or reassurance, and I'm completely powerless to say no. I return to my seat on the couch and he jumps immediately, getting as much of himself as he can onto my lap and then pushing his nose into my legs and hands. I get the message and start stroking his fur. And, if I get him with my wrist from time to time and smooth a layer of my scent over his body, there's no one to see. There's something coming off of him other than relief and happiness. It smells like arousal, and I try not to let my nose or my mind linger on it. Surely, that's a step too far into the land of weird? I don't think about what it means, but I can't help it adds to the delicious cocktail I'm sending from him. He buries his soft face under my hand, as if wolves could felt embarrassment, and I completely refuse to acknowledge the fact my pants are becoming uncomfortably tight where scent is making my dick fill. It's just pheromones. It's just biology going a little crooked. All I have to do is ignore it. Chapter 5. William. I can't stop myself from whistling as I climb out of the Range Rover. I'm home, in time for dinner, after several hours spent running errands that seemed interminable. It's putting me in such a good mood, I don't even let myself examine the whys and hows of when a few hours became a nightmare amount of time to be in town. And I definitely don't let myself include the wolf in this picture. As much as I've become strangely attached to the creature, I have to remember it's still a wild animal. One day it will need to leave. The fear of the morning runs through me at the thought of it is irrelevant. Once I can't smell the damn thing anymore, I'll forget about it like normal. Probably. Maybe. Who really knows? So, for now I ignore that possibility and let myself smile. As I step up to the door, holding a bag of raw meat I picked up at the local organic ranch, I can already smell his sweet scent. He smells content, once again. My inner alpha wants to purr and puff its chest with pride at how good a job I'm doing taking care of him. My inner alpha, apparently, doesn't give a crap he's not human. The lock clicks open as I turn the keys, and I immediately look around to spot my good boy. I expect to find him curled up on the couch, asleep, but what I see there is something else. It's a man. A naked man, curled up in a ball on his side, face tucked into his arms, breathing deep and slow. Sleeping where my wolf should be. My body freezes, and I blink a few times to clear my mind and figure out what's going on. But no matter how much I blink, the man is still there. He's younger than me, maybe mid-20s? His skin is pale, much paler than mine, but with tan lines that indicate a lifetime spent outdoors. I can see lean, defined muscle, not like a weightlifter, but like someone who actually uses his strength, day in and day out. His face is hidden from view, but he has beautiful, thick, sandy blonde hair. Almost tawny. In fact, it's the same color as the wolf's fur. Speaking of the wolf, where is it? I drop the bag of meat to the floor in my sudden panic, looking around for those amber eyes. The noise obviously disturbs the man and he wakes with a start, blinking at me owlishly, movement still slow and sleepy. I take a deep breath, preparing to ask the man who he is and what the hell he's doing in my house, but then something catches my eye. His eyes. They're a deep, golden color. Amber, just like my wolf's. And they have the same contained, calculating intelligence, just like my wolf's. And it takes a few moments to hit me, but his smell, pine forests and petrichor, just like my wolf's. What the hell is going on? The young man seems equally confused. He brings a hand up to run over his face, but something about the feel of it seems to startle him. He looks down, eyes running over every inch of his body, and the movement lets me see a little more of his body than I was expecting. I try not to look, but the glimpses I get are not at all disappointing. I think my mouth is hanging open while I watch him gather himself together. After a few seconds, he also takes a deep breath, the corners of his mouth turning up in a small smile as he stares at me. He clears his throat, as if he hasn't spoken in quite a while. "Hello, William," he says in a low, intoxicatingly masculine growl. As soon as I hear him speak, the combination of his eyes, his smell, and his voice, they all tell me something I didn't want to believe. But there's no other way to explain it. I find my voice and do my best to respond in a steady voice. "Hello, Wolf." Chapter 4. Jack. Well, this might be the most humiliating thing that's ever happened to me. I may look like a wolf sometimes, but I'm still a rational, self-aware human being. I'm not supposed to just wander around and follow my prehistoric animal instincts. But when the stranger came in, I just lost control. He smelled like an omega, so I knew he wasn't a threat, but he was there talking to my alpha. Just flaunting himself, with his handsome face and muscular arms. When I get too deep in my wolf headspace, human words can fade away to a distant whomp whomp noise, and that was what happened. I did not know what he really came for, but every inch of my body was sold on the idea it must have something to do with taking Alpha away. So I growled and I postured, but he didn't seem to get the hint. And Alpha just let him sit, as if he belonged here. The whole situation was sending my senses haywire. I tried to be polite, because that's obviously what Alpha wanted, but I couldn't stand it. That giant man was pumping his own omega sweetness into the room and drowning out the beautiful, mingled scent Alpha and I had created over the past 2 days. If I'd been back to health 100%, I would have chased him out of the building. But I'm here, curled up on Alpha's lap, digging my nose into him and licking his fingers submissively, as if I can hide the shame. I should have controlled it. But I felt more and more anxious the longer the Omega sat with us, and the less I could smell my true mate. I needed the Omega to see this man was already claimed, even if he didn't know it yet. I'd felt the pressure of my bladder build and build until I was dancing around on the floor trying to control it. I should have just gone outside to relieve myself, but there was no way I was leaving Alpha alone. Eventually, it was just like a dam burst. I couldn't see straight. The only thing I could do was focus on my need to get my scent all over Alpha. I didn't even know what I was doing until it was too late. The rush of pleasure hits me and it's indescribable. All that anxiety, all that panic, drained out of my body as I released. My piss mixed with Alpha's scent to make that unique us mates home smell I was chasing. It felt like I was offering myself up to Alpha on a silver platter. I was showing him I belonged to him. And the other Omega left, so, mission accomplished. As soon as I was done, I expected Alpha to be angry. I was about to roll over on my belly and submit, but then he smiled at me. Not a big one, but it made his already handsome face become dazzling. He cocked his head at me like he was trying to puzzle me out, but there was no malice in it. Just the heady scent of affection. So, I climbed up on the couch with him to bury myself in his body, and here we are. My urine still soaking his legs, his large, warm hand resting on my head and scratching absently. I feel safe and protected, and it only takes me a few minutes to fall asleep. The rest of the night is pretty similar. I wake when Alpha stands, and follow him around while he does some chores. I let myself crow a little on the inside when I notice he still hasn't changed out of his wet pants. We eat dinner together. He eats something with vegetables I wouldn't even want to look at in my human form, and I eat a delicious slab of raw steak he pulls out of the fridge for me. When night falls, instead of curling up at the end of the bed like I have the past 2 nights, I set myself on the other half of the bed, wriggling until my back is pressed up against his warmth. He sinks a hand into my fur and strokes, and again it only takes me a few minutes to fall into a contented, dreamless sleep. We wake with the sunrise, like he seems to do every day. After a morning spent on the couch together, I feel like a stick of hot butter, ready to melt all over him in a warm embrace. But then he gets up. He apologizes to me, saying he has to go out for a couple of hours and then he'll be right back. Panic wells up in me at the thought my mate is abandoning me, but then I smell the earnestness and conviction on him and I trust he's telling the truth. I lick his hands and face a few times, just to make sure he takes my smell with him out into the world, and he laughs and calls me a good boy. The sound of those 2 words sinks into my heart and fills it up. I feel light and pleased, and it doesn't hurt. I finally feel like I'm mostly healed and back to my normal self. Well, my normal self, but just happy for once. I keep myself from trying to pick everything apart and imagine the worst-case scenarios for the future. Instead, I just lie back on the couch and settle into Alpha's spot to take a nap. His earthy scent wraps around me, and I shut my eyes. I feel completely whole, finally. Chapter 4. Jack. Well, this might be the most humiliating thing that's ever happened to me. I may look like a wolf sometimes, but I'm still a rational, self-aware human being. I'm not supposed to just wander around and follow my prehistoric animal instincts. But when the stranger came in, I just lost control. He smelled like an omega, so I knew he wasn't a threat, but he was there talking to my alpha. Just flaunting himself, with his handsome face and muscular arms. When I get too deep in my wolf headspace, human words can fade away to a distant womp womp noise, and that was what happened. I did not know what he really came for, but every inch of my body was sold on the idea it must have something to do with taking Alpha away. So I growled and I postured, but he didn't seem to get the hint. And Alpha just let him sit, as if he belonged here. The whole situation was sending my senses haywire. I tried to be polite, because that's obviously what Alpha wanted, but I couldn't stand it. That giant man was pumping his own omega sweetness into the room and drowning out the beautiful, mingled scent Alpha and I had created over the past 2 days. If I'd been back to health 100%, I would have chased him out of the building. But I'm here, curled up on Alpha's lap, digging my nose into him and licking his fingers submissively, as if I can hide the shame. I should have controlled it. But I felt more and more anxious the longer the omega sat with us, and the less I could smell my true mate. I needed the omega to see this man was already claimed, even if he didn't know it yet. I'd felt the pressure of my bladder build and build until I was dancing around on the floor trying to control it. I should have just gone outside to relieve myself, but there was no way I was leaving Alpha alone. Eventually, it was just like a dam burst. I couldn't see straight. The only thing I could do was focus on my need to get my scent all over Alpha. I didn't even know what I was doing until it was too late. The rush of pleasure hits me and it's indescribable. All that anxiety, all that panic, drained out of my body as I released. My piss mixed with Alpha's scent to make that unique us mates home smell I was chasing. It felt like I was offering myself up to Alpha on a silver platter. I was showing him I belonged to him. And the other omega left, so, mission accomplished. As soon as I was done, I expected Alpha to be angry. I was about to roll over on my belly and submit, but then he smiled at me. Not a big one, but it made his already handsome face become dazzling. He cocked his head at me like he was trying to puzzle me out, but there was no malice in it. Just the heady scent of affection. So, I climbed up on the couch with him to bury myself in his body, and here we are. My urine still soaking his legs, his large, warm hand resting on my head and scratching absently. I feel safe and protected, and it only takes me a few minutes to fall asleep. The rest of the night is pretty similar. I wake when Alpha stands, and follow him around while he does some chores. I let myself crow a little on the inside when I notice he still hasn't changed out of his wet pants. We eat dinner together. He eats something with vegetables I wouldn't even want to look at in my human form, and I eat a delicious slab of raw steak he pulls out of the fridge for me. When night falls, instead of curling up at the end of the bed like I have the past 2 nights, I set myself on the other half of the bed, wriggling until my back is pressed up against his warmth. He sinks a hand into my fur and strokes, and again it only takes me a few minutes to fall into a contented, dreamless sleep. We wake with the sunrise, like he seems to do every day. After a morning spent on the couch together, I feel like a stick of hot butter, ready to melt all over him in a warm embrace. But then he gets up. He apologizes to me, saying he has to go out for a couple of hours and then he'll be right back. Panic wells up in me at the thought my mate is abandoning me, but then I smell the earnestness and conviction on him and I trust he's telling the truth. I lick his hands and face a few times, just to make sure he takes my smell with him out into the world, and he laughs and calls me a good boy. The sound of those 2 words sinks into my heart and fills it up. I feel light and pleased, and it doesn't hurt. I finally feel like I'm mostly healed and back to my normal self. Well, my normal self, but just happy for once. I keep myself from trying to pick everything apart and imagine the worst-case scenarios for the future. Instead, I just lie back on the couch and settle into Alpha's spot to take a nap. His earthy scent wraps around me, and I shut my eyes. I feel completely whole, finally. Chapter 7. William. The feeling of sinking myself into his wet heat is indescribable. Every inch of me drags on his inner walls and makes him clench. It feels like his body is pulling me in and squeezing me tight. It takes all my self-control not to moan and then come on the spot. Instead, I look down at him. The arch of back makes him look like a beautiful, wild creature, and he's shoved his face and chest enthusiastically into the floorboards. Presenting, just for me. I give him a few seconds to adjust, feeling his muscles relax as a fine tremor runs through his body, and then I move. Every thrust of my cock draws a small, breathy noise from him. It's intoxicating. He's so slick his legs are coated and it's running down my body as well. I pick up the pace, making sure my pelvis is flush with him every time, moving harder and harder until he keens. It's a high-pitched, involuntary noise of need, and it makes me feel like I'm possessed. Claim, claim, claim. Find, claim and fuck. My omega. My mate. My precious whole. I realize I'm growling instinctively, joining in the sound of Jack's whining and the sharp slap of my flesh on his. I know he's close to something, some kind of release, and I need him to let go before I can come. One hand snakes down without meaning to, and before I know it I'm threading my fingers through his hair, grabbing a chunk of it and using the leverage to pin him harder to the floor. Not to hurt him, but to hold him tight. Come for me, my little omega. Just let go, I whisper through clenched teeth. Jack screams as his release slams into him. It hits him hard, his body contorting and his channel squeezing me in waves that make my knot swell. But when I look, it's not cum that's spurting out of him. It's urine. His delicious smelling, earthy, just another beautiful part of Jack urine. It splashes onto the floor and pools out around us, coating my knees and shins. His body is racked with the waves of it for so long. It pours out of him, one spurt at a time, as every muscle he has tenses and he lets out more soft cries. As it ebbs, relaxation sinks into him and he looks blissful. It makes my need to knot him even stronger. I thrust again, pounding into him with every ounce of feral energy in my body, chasing my release. He hangs mostly limp in my arms, only making pleased little grunting sounds with every thrust. In less than 30 seconds, my orgasm hits. I can feel my knot swelling, and it takes one final slam to push the width of it past his rim. Seated inside him, where I belong, I fill him up with my seed, pulsing into him. We collapse to the floor, tied together, both of us moaning as I ride out the sensation until there's no more cum to fill him with. I don't know how long we lie there, shivering with the aftershocks of pleasure, trying to catch our breath. But when I can finally focus my eyes again, I see his red, throbbing erection. It's so in need of attention it looks like he might burst. I reach one hand around where our bodies are still tied and slide us both onto our sides, spooning around my thick knot. He flinches when I touch his cock. Overstimulated. I consider whether or not it's too much, but then he gives me an answer in the most desperate, supplicant voice I've ever heard. Please, Alpha, he almost sobs, please, it hurts. Please let me come. Of course, sweetheart, I whisper, placing a tender kiss on the side of his neck, just relax into me. I wrap my hand around his shaft, gently, and move. He makes choked sounds and keeps twitching with the stimulation, but it doesn't take long before he's pulsing hot into my hand. It goes on and on, like he hasn't come for such a long time, and then I feel his muscles unwind, one by one, his body safe in my arms. The afterglow takes over and we both fade into sleep. I keep holding him tight, reaching up once to wipe some of the snot and tears from his face, a product of being overwhelmed by sensation. And then, I allow myself to drift off as well. Right here on the floor. It feels more like home than anywhere I've ever slept. When I wake, the morning sunlight is filtering through the windows to warm my face. We must have slept through the entire evening and night, but despite the beginnings of some very stiff muscles, it was worth it. I didn't want to move an inch. My movements seem to wake Jack, who takes in a deep breath and murmurs, "Morning, Alpha." I kiss him on the cheek and return the sentiment, but that much movement calls attention to our situation. There's a little mess to clean up. My knot must have gone down hours and hours ago, but apparently we both slept so deeply I never pulled out. There's piss and cum all around us, and although the primal smell of our combined scents is pretty intoxicating, it's going to stain the woodwork. I groan as I pull out, and Jack soon joins me. Our flesh feels raw and used, and we both wince a little as I pull free of his entrance. A trail of my cum leaks out after me, and I stop thinking about the discomfort just long enough to feel a curl of pride in my chest and how beautiful it is. Mine. I think I need a shower, Jack mumbles with his face still pressed into the floor. I think we both do. I agree, I say as I pull myself into a sitting position. Jack does the same, moaning and groaning as he goes, until we're not touching at all. I don't like it. It feels unnatural, and I have no choice other than to reach out and pull him towards me, stickiness be damned. I lean against the couch and arrange his long limbs until he's sitting in my lap, his back resting against my chest. Every time I touch him, he presses into the contact with a level of desperation makes me wonder how long it's been since he's been held. We both inhale together, and I feel that sense of tranquility return. We sit in silence for a few minutes, ignoring the tacky mess of dried bodily fluids. I try to work myself up to what I need to say, but when I finally speak, my voice sounds shakier than I wanted it to. Jack? I ask. Where's your family? Or your pack? Where is home? Jack had been nuzzling into my neck, but the question makes him freeze. Why do you ask, William? He asks with an even, emotionless tone. I just wanted to know if there was someone waiting for you, some reason you needed to leave soon. I was trying to figure out how long you could stay here with me. I try not to let my embarrassment show. I sound like a damn schoolboy asking someone to the prom for the first time. Oh, he replies, rubbing one hand over my knee absently, well, you don't need to worry about that. I normally keep on the move to avoid being discovered or whatever, but there's no family. Nothing like that. The forced cheerfulness immediately breaks my heart. There's a story there, I'm sure of it, but it seems like one I'll have to coax out of him. I already felt desperate to protect this man, but it's just growing stronger with every minute we spend together. Okay, I say, leaving a trail of kisses at the base of his neck. How about we go take a shower, and then I take you out and show you the town? I can feel him smile. We both stand, and the walk to the bathroom quickly turns into a playful, naked race. Chapter 8. Jack. Last night was something else. Something that's never happened to me before. I mean, I've been around the block. I'm not unadventurous in the bedroom. But I'm also not stupid, so I try to mostly hook up with betas, or even other omegas, and keep my distance from unmated alphas. Knotheads, most of them, always looking for one thing. I'm tall and strong and masculine looking, and I've still gotten my ass grabbed or had some roided up, hypermasculine asshole try to pin me into a corner and get his scent on me more than once. Yeesh. But Alpha seems different. He's calm and level-headed. He's kind, the type of guy who saves a random wolf from the road, and I've never seen him throw around either his weight or his scent. Waking this morning, I felt genuinely safe for the first time in a very long time. Alpha's brawny arms were wrapped around me and our bodies were pressed together, flesh to flesh, sense intermingled. There had been the brief, awkward moment where William had tried to ask me some personal questions, but we brushed past them, and before I knew it we were in the shower together, warm-skinned and soap-slick. We were mostly focused on getting clean, except Alpha kept touching me like he was exploring every inch of me. That had led to some heavy eye contact, which had obviously led to a wet and sloppy make-out session under the water. Then Alpha had reached down and squeezed my slowly filling cock, gentle but possessive, and I was done for. Not a minute later I was on my knees in the spray, eyes shut and begging Alpha to fuck my face. And Alpha seemed happy to oblige. One hand had grabbed a hank of my hair to hold me in place, pulling a whine from somewhere deep inside me, while the other had guided the head of that velvety cock past my lips. His hand joined the other one in gripping me by the hair, and then I didn't have to do anything except relax my muscles, letting myself be used. Alpha pounded into me, standing tall, muscles flexing, looking like nothing less than some sort of divine warrior sent to fuck me senseless into the afterlife. I barely noticed when I came, untouched, onto the shower floor. I had stepped out of the shower with cum on my lips, a slight rasp to my voice and a happy, floaty feeling putting a smile on my face. William had thoroughly dried me off, making me brush my teeth and put on some clothes. He kissed me on the cheek and called me a good boy, yet again, and now we're out in town and I feel like I'm walking in the clouds. And that old, familiar voice in the back of my head, the one telling me not to get too comfortable because nothing this good can last? I try to ignore it. I don't deserve for it to last forever, anyway. But that doesn't mean I can't enjoy it in the meantime. Honeysuckle Hills is cute. I mean, Honeysuckle Hills seems to try really hard to look cute, but they've succeeded, so who gives a fuck if it's organic or not? Speaking of organic, they seem to love it here. Every restaurant, every grocery store, they're all covered in posters advertising the qualities of their produce. It seems like everything is also farm to table as well, whatever that means. I basically grew up eating buffalo wings in biker bars and nuked enchiladas from the gas station, so I don't really know anything about this stuff, but it seems pretty cool. At least these people give a shit about the world. As long as I can still eat stuff with meat in it. I'm not in my wolf form right now, but that doesn't mean I'm going to start eating rabbit food like some quivering prey animal. I still have my pride. William squeezes my hand reassuringly as we walk around town. He jabbers on about this business and that, and how they're all connected, and I don't really care about what he's saying, but it's amazing to see how passionate he is. His whole face lights up and his eyes shine bright every time he looks at me. It makes me want to run my fingers through his dark, untamed sex hair and never stop. After we've seen the river, pretty, and some fancy townhouses with nice brick fronts and broad windows, old, but also pretty, we finally pause. William suggests lunch, and my stomach is quick to agree. Neither of us have had anything in our mouths except each other's tongues, cocks and semen for the last 14 hours, and it's catching up to me. We get back in the car and Alpha drives us out of the valley. I assume we're going home, until we pull up in front of an enormous cattle ranch. It's stunning. I think my mouth is hanging open as I step out of the car. The earth beneath us is rich and dark, and the lingering scent of living cattle combined with roasting meat makes me feel right at home. When I blink myself back to reality, William is looking at me with a grin on his face. He walks over to me and wraps one hand around my waist, forcing me to control my instinct to curl into the warmth and security of his body. I love this town, but it tends to skew towards tiny portions of plant-based food in upscale restaurants. I thought someone of your wolfish appetite, he winks at me the fucking dork, would appreciate something a little more meaty. I can't stop myself from smiling back at him. I couldn't even if I wanted to. He's so sweet it's killing me. I don't know what to say, so instead I lean over and kiss him. It was something innocent, but that was probably a pipe dream. He quickly slips his tongue into my mouth with a rumbling purr, and I'm helpless to not reciprocate. My arms wrap around his waist and start untucking his blue button-down from his nice pants, determined to get some contact with his skin. His own hands are about as low as you can go on my ass if you're in public. Shit, we are in public. Someone wolf whistles at us from a few feet away and I pull back from William instantly, scanning the space for threats. Alpha just laughs though, releasing me enough to wave at the man walking towards us. Sorry about that, he says as they grin at each other, got a little carried away. Jack, this is Colton. His family has owned this ranch for decades and he recently took over running the place. It's a beautiful operation. They have the highest level of animal welfare certification that a cattle ranch can get. Colton, this is my friend Jack. He's new in town. Colton smiles at me, broad and genuine, and holds out his hand to shake. I run my eyes over him, doing a lightning speed evaluation to see if I get any threatening vibes from him. He smells like an omega, which is a good start. His face is warm and his body language is relaxed, also good. He's handsome, too. Like, movie star handsome. In his 30s maybe, short, light brown hair, tan skin, dark blue eyes. Very sexy stubble and some dark chest hair visible at the neck of his loose, dirty shirt. Shining with sweat. Every inch of him screams cowboy, even without a hat. I take his hand and give it a firm shake, trying to look friendlier than I feel. He may not be a threat, but maybe he's too handsome. Just a tasty, muscular treat wandering around in front of my Alpha. Well, that's a stupid train of thought. I shake it off and bring my attention back to the conversation that's going on without me. Jack's quite the carnivore. I thought this would be a perfect time to come check out your new barbecue stand. Alpha is still smiling at the man. Absolutely, please, enjoy, Colton demurs, it's just around the corner in the barn. Grab a plate, help yourself to sides, and then they'll serve you whatever barbecue you want at the end. We've got cold beer and soda, and plenty of tables to sit at. Nothing fancy about it. Now he's the one winking at me, and I'm pretty sure I don't like it. Make yourselves at home. We exchange some polite goodbyes and Alpha leads me towards the barn. I put my full attention towards not letting my irrational jealousy simmer over. It helps that as soon as we walk inside, everything smells delicious and I'm too overcome by hunger to keep stewing on it. We grab our food and take a seat at a normal-looking picnic table outside in the sunshine. I devour my plate while Alpha watches, eating his own food at a reasonable pace and smiling at me from time to time. By the time we both finish, I feel much better, although the acrid scent of my resentment is still lingering. Between us, we have 4 paws full of sticky fingers, so Alpha throws our paper plates away and gestures for me to follow him to the bathroom to wash up. I follow him, instinctively obedient even though it's kind of embarrassing. There's a series of outhouses for guests. But, instead of steering us towards the banks of urinals and sinks, Alpha takes me to a stall with a door that closes and has a sink inside. Unthinking, I go in. He washes his hands before telling me to wash mine. I don't think I even notice his voice has deepened, or the new smell hanging between us, but it's making me feel more turned on than jealous, finally. As soon as my hands are dry, Alpha moves. He wraps one arm around my waist, slamming me into the wall and stepping into the space between my legs. One arm holds me up while the other cups my crotch, just gently, on the outside of the jeans he lent me. Alpha, what dash I start. I'm distantly aware something like this would normally set my alarm bells off at the highest setting, but with Alpha, I still know I'm safe. Confused, but safe. SHH, sweetheart, he whispers to me, close enough that our lips almost brush as he speaks. Don't pretend I couldn't smell it all over you out there, he continues, voice low and deep and giving me extremely dirty thoughts, that jealousy, that possessiveness. It surprised me. But then I thought, maybe I'm just not taking good enough care of you. Showing you that while you're here, you're mine and I'm yours. In a different situation, that would be too much genuine emotion for me. But with him all growly and handsy, my dick tells me we're on board with it. Even more so when he slips his hand into my waistband. I'm only just getting hard, but that seems to work for him. He smiles at me with wild eyes as he strokes me. His grip is firm, just the right side of painful, and in between strokes he keeps moving his hand further, cradling my balls and then running his fingers over my crack. It's setting my nerve endings on fire, and I lean forward to kiss him. Tisk, TSK, TSK, he says, you'll do as you're told, my good Omega. Just relax. I bask in the warmth of those words and let myself rest in his arms, loose and open to anything. All the blood in my body is rushing to give me the world's fastest boner. The only other part of my body I can feel are my lips, where Alpha's mouth brushes against them with every movement, both of us sharing the same air. Just relax, he whispers again, picking up the pace. I'm trying to be quiet for the sake of everyone else moving in and out of the bathroom, but I'm only partially successful. Anyone who stood close enough to our door would definitely hear some heavy panting and the sound of his hand moving over my swollen cock. I'm too horny to do anything but stand there. I can feel my orgasm building, feel my tip get wet with pre-cum that slicks his hand as he keeps moving. A soft groan slips out as I almost reach the peak. Alpha, gonna come, I breathe. 1, 2, 3 more strokes and then, just as the first crest of pleasure is within reach, he lets go, pulling his hand out of my pants and leaning away from me with a smug look on his stupid handsome face. I almost double forward with the feeling of it. The lack of a climax. It's like having the rug ripped out from under my feet. My cock is twitching in my pants, looking for friction, but there's nothing there. Alpha, what the dash? Maybe, if you keep being a good boy, he purrs at me, and talk to me about how you feel before getting in a snit, you can have an orgasm later. There's a pause as he looks at the sky. Or maybe I love those noises you make right before you're about to come too much, and I just want you to make them over, and over, and over, without release. We'll see. He shrugs like the son of a bitch he is, then grabs my hand and leads me back out of the stall, still smiling to himself. I try to cover my awkward boner as we rejoin civilization. This man is clearly going to be the death of me. But fuck it, it'll be worth it. Chapter 9. William. The look on my Omega's face when I'd pulled my hand out of his pants had been one of the most arousing things I've ever seen. He was breathy and desperate, coming undone beneath me, every inch of him begging me to hold him and touch him and make him feel good. It was so amazing, I couldn't stop there. And he's pretending to be grumpy about it, but he can't hide how excited he gets whenever we go for another round. We've left the bathroom and headed straight for the Ranger. He climbed inside with one hand awkwardly positioned over his crotch and he'd squirmed for every minute of the drive. He probably thought we were going home to finish what I started, but not yet. First, I drove until we were on the long, empty stretch of road that lay between the ranch and town. As soon as we hit a safe place to pull over, I did, wasting no time before I leaned over and pulled his now soft cock out of his pants. He was breathing hard before I even got my mouth around him. Enjoying some privacy after the very public bathroom situation, the second I laid over his cock with my tongue, he was moaning with abandon. It only took a few minutes to get him aching hard and on the verge of tears, the scent of slick filling the car, and as soon as I felt a throbbing start to run through him, I pulled off and tucked him back in. I started driving before he even caught his breath, and all he said to me for the rest of the drive was, "You asshole." It made me grin. When he got out of the car later, there was a prominent wet spot on the seat, and I handed him an oversized flannel to tie around his waist to cover the back of his pants. Next, I took him to an art gallery, which I knew he wouldn't find very interesting. But I used every dark, silent corner to pin him against the wall and slip my fingers into his wet, slick hole. It was rude to the other guests, to be sure, but everyone gives a certain amount of social leeway when an alpha and an omega are in public, filling the room with their pheromones. We're not held to a very high standard of self-control. Normally I think it's infantilizing, but in this situation it's playing to my favor, so I'm not complaining. By the time we've reached the end of the gallery, he was walking with a hitch in his step and sporting an obvious boner that didn't look like it was going down soon. It looked like he was getting tired. As soon as we got back in the car, he wrapped himself around my arm and clung to it for the entire drive. Luckily, I drive an automatic and could make do with only one hand. Now we're parked in front of Catskill Mountains. It's outside of town and near my orchard. The guest house itself doesn't have a name, but it's attached to our local pride and joy, Wildflower. Wildflower is a farm-to-table restaurant and probably the best in town. It turns everyone's local produce into high-end dishes, and there's a rumor that they're close to getting a Michelin star. I wouldn't subject Jack to that kind of formality though, not after the day he's had. I just want to slip into the B&B and have a casual glass of wine at their bar and introduce Jack to some more of my friends. "Wake up, sweetheart," I whisper, kissing the top of his head where it rests on my shoulder. He'd actually fallen asleep on the way here, and it's adorable. I have to fight the powerful urge to skip this stop, taking him home and wrapping him in a nest of warm blankets instead. But this is the last stop. Tomorrow I really have to go back to work, so I want to make the most of this time with him. He opens his eyes with a groan and looks at me with bleary eyes. "UMF," he mumbles, "where are we?" "We're at a B&B. My friend Kit owns it. I wanted to stop by for a glass of wine, introduce you to them." Jack continues to blink and adjust to being awake again. He uses one hand to adjust his pants, and I'm pretty sure I've succeeded in giving him a permanent boner. Them? Is it two people, or? No, Kit is genderqueer. They don't identify as male or female, and they use the pronouns are/they/them. I give him a second to process. He looks at the roof for a second, perplexed. I still know little about Jack, but it sounds like he's had kind of a rough, backcountry upbringing. I hope this won't be an issue. After a moment, he just shrugs and looks at me. "All right," he says. He seems unaffected by this new window of knowledge that's been opened for him. Once again, I don't know a lot of facts, but I can tell he's a kind, caring person, and it makes me glow. Jack pulls himself together and we head inside. The whole thing is decked out like a cottage in rural England, with big, overhead wooden beams and even a thatched roof. It's adorable. Both of us look too big to be in there, like bulls in a china shop, but I've gotten used to it. We order 2 glasses of wine and take some seats at the bar. Jack sniffs at his glass suspiciously, before shrugging again and knocking it back like a shot of whiskey. I keep myself from laughing out loud, but I snort and smile at him. I have to lean over and kiss his wine-soaked lips, just briefly, and the feeling of him melting into that kiss brings me some profound contentment. I swear to Freya, Maddie, if you knock over one more thing in my stockroom, I'm swapping your shampoo with Nair. Maybe if you weren't weighed down by all that fur you wouldn't be so clumsy. The words travel to the bar because Kid is opening the door to the back as they speak. Well, shout. "Hi, guys," their entire demeanor changes as they smile at me and Jack. "Don't use my own fucking gods against me, Kit, it's culturally insensitive." Maddie's voice reaches us from somewhere in the back. "You're Finnish, not Norse, you lumbering asshole." Kit shouts back to him. They look at us again, sighing and shaking their head. What a moron, they mutter. I fight back a smile as I watch the exchange. You and Maddie getting along better than, I see? Maybe if he had over 2 brain cells to spark together. Kit rolls their eyes and takes a dramatic step towards us, their black, tailored coats sweeping out behind them. Most of the people in this town favor some kind of business casual, flannel chic or neo-pagan, hippie outfits. Kit is probably the only person who really cares about fashion. I know they schlepped to New York City to get everything they own, and it all looks custom-made. Their hair today is dyed a deep magenta and swept back from their pale, angular face. Wide, chocolate brown eyes are dramatically lined in the same magenta. I look over at Jack, and he's staring at Kit, looking like some wheels are trying to turn in his head and put everything together. He smiles though, a shy but genuine smile, and takes Kit's hand when it's offered. I clear my throat. Kit, this is Jack. He's new in town. Please don't scare him away. I would never. Kit pulls their hand back to their chest and affects shock. Well, almost never. Enchanté, Jack. They finish with wink and a tip of an imaginary hat. I turn my attention back to my partner, but out of the corner of my eye, I swear I can see Kit scent the air, a strangely serious expression crossing their face. Nice to meet you, Jack mumbles. He still looks dazed from his car nap. Kit continues to look him up and down, searching for I don't know what. I'm about to start a real conversation when there's a loud crash from the back. Kit freezes and takes in one deep, angry breath before resuming movement. They start by screaming, Maddie, you pickled fish eating, ice fishing, caribou herding redneck, what the hell did you break now? And with that, they storm back through the swinging door. Luckily, there's no one in the bar apart from Jack, myself and the bartender, who is just watching with a familiar smirk. Jack takes a deep breath. So, Alpha, he trails his fingers over my hand and licks his lips. What torture do you have planned for me at this location, on our tour of Jack's aching and unattended cock? I laugh at him, utterly charmed. I wouldn't say it's unattended, sweetheart. If anything, it's overattended. Anyway, little Omega, it looks like you might get tired, maybe we should. I'm cut off when the door that joins the bar with Wildflower opens. The dinner crowd is just getting started and the noise of plates clinking and table chatter pours into our quiet space. A group of people pass through the doorway, some of them stumbling, even this early in the evening. Jack rolls his eyes at the chaotic entry, and I decide to take him home and put him to bed. I get cut off again though, when a heavy hand slaps on my shoulder. I thought you boycotted anywhere that actually made money, William, a man's voice rumbles behind me. I close my eyes and steel myself before I turn around. Norman! Fancy seeing you here. I try to keep the majority of my seething hatred out of my voice. I thought you always spent Tuesday nights beating the help and diving into a swimming pool full of gold coins. He throws his head back and laughs. It's loud, but there's no humor in it. He's holding a glass of something expensive looking, and I can already see the red flush crawling up his round cheeks, only half covered by a dark beard. He's tall and strong, even for an alpha, but a luxurious lifestyle has let his large body run to fat. Always with the jokes, William. I'm happy to see your poor financial decisions still aren't weighing on your mind. Norman's friends all laugh at that one, the ones that aren't busy ordering drinks, at least. And who's your little friend? He asks, his shifty gaze falling on Jack. Jack growls. Not a little growl, but a full-throated, lips tugging up to show his teeth, growl. Norman leans back for a second, but then he laughs again. Caught yourself a wild one, I see. He claps my shoulder one more time, hard enough to make me jerk forward, and Jack's growl gets even louder. Well, I guess I'll lead you to it. He turns around, and it's over even quicker than I'd hoped. I tug at Jack's sleeve, pulling him towards the front door. He follows, but his body language is low and wary. For a moment he looks more like his wolf self than a man. His eyes stay trained on Norman the entire time. Norman keeps talking to his friends, but I catch him sliding his eyes over Jack. It would make me defensive, but there's no hunger or lust in it. Instead, he looks angry, suspicious. Whatever it is, I can't parse it. Jack doesn't speak until we're back in the car. Who the fuck was that creepy alpha? His name is Norman, I sigh. He's very wealthy, and he owns the only remaining corporate farm in the area. We've been trying to shut him out for years because of his nasty business practices and the fact that he treats his land and livestock like shit. He's an asshole, but so far he's been too powerful for any of us to get rid of him. Jack stares out of the windshield, jaw clenched, grinding his teeth. I don't like him, he says. I mean, I don't like any alphas, but especially him. You don't like any alphas? I try not to sound as hurt as I feel. He looks over at me and his expression softens. His hand reaches out to touch my face and I try not to lean into it like a needy bitch. Oh, not you, Alpha, you're different. And your friend Kit, they smelled like an alpha, but there was definitely something different about them. Really different, actually. He crinkles his nose as he tries to put his finger on something, and I swear I'm listening, but the expression just makes his freckles stand out and the whole situation is adorable. It's just most alphas, he continues, most alphas you can't trust. Not heads, he finishes, punctuating it with a snort. He sounds gruff, but underneath it there's a scent of fear and pain. Interesting. Yet another mysterious, painful memory that makes me want to hold him until it fades away. I pull him into a chase kiss, but I don't question him. I know I haven't earned his trust like that yet. I put the car into drive and pull out of the parking lot, while Jack returns to staring, pensive, out of the window. I saw him earlier today, you know. At the art gallery. And at the ranch, actually. Both times I just thought he was a normal creep who wouldn't stop staring at me. Huh. That sounds strange. How much of a coincidence would it be for him to be at all three places? And when I saw him stare at Jack, it wasn't just lascivious. There was something more sinister there. Jack and I don't say another word for the rest of the drive home. Chapter 10. Jack. Alpha's bad mood sat around him like a fortress the whole drive back. He looked concerned and confused, and his scent took on a burnt, bitter edge. I don't know what I said to make him angry. Maybe it was because I growled at that gross man. Or he didn't think I was friendly enough to Kit. Either way, it was making me feel like crap. I'd stared out of the window the whole way back, holding back the urge to crawl to him on my belly and lick his hands in submission. As soon as we pull up to the house, Alpha shuts off the engine and climbs out of the car in silence. He holds my door open for me, his hand grazing across the small of my back as I get out. It sends a shiver through me that makes me think maybe he's not so mad after all. We continue like this for a while, stepping inside and putting our things down. I kick off my shoes and sink, exhausted, into the couch. I love this couch. So many wonderful things have happened here. I'll miss it when William eventually sends me away. Alpha walks over and sets a glass of water in front of me. He still hasn't said a word, and the panic I've been suppressing has ratcheted up to an unbearable level. My chest feels tight. I have to do something about it. No one's ever made me feel the way he makes me feel, and I'm not ready to lose it yet. I slip off the couch and sink to my knees in front of him. My hands work to unbutton his pants. I can feel my fingertips grazing the outline of his fat cock, and as much as this moment has a purpose other than sex, it still sends a little thrill through me. Sweetheart, what are you doing? He asks in a soft voice as he looks at me. I'm sorry, Alpha, I say. I didn't mean to make you angry. Let me make it up to you. He squints at me and cocks his head in confusion. When did you make me angry? I lose my train of thought. I'm not sure. You just seem mad. I have spent little of my life being submissive. It's too easy to get surprised. But something about this, about sinking onto my knees and supplicating myself when I still feel completely safe, it's intriguing. I kind of like it. Oh, sweet boy, come here, he sighs, fingertips tugging at my jaw as I stand. We stay close together, and I force myself to ignore my instincts and look him in the eye. I'm not angry at you. I'm sorry I made you feel that way. I'm just concerned about Norman and what you said about him staring at you. That's all. I didn't mean to make you feel bad, and even if you had made me angry, you certainly wouldn't need to make it up to me like that. I would never ask you to do that. Oh, I sigh, still confused. Well, why do you think he was staring at me? I don't know, he says, shaking his head. Maybe I'll text Kit and see if they know anything. Before I have the chance to say anything, he's pulling out his cell phone and typing a message to Kit. When he's finished, I look at him and lick my lips. All I can focus on is how sexy his thick, tan forearms look with his shirt sleeves rolled up. It's mesmerizing. I can feel the heat in my eyes when I say, "Let's go to the bedroom, Alpha." He looks at me sharply. I just said you didn't need to, but trails off as I shake my head at him. Oh, are you tired? I know we had a big day. His hand comes up to swipe a thumb over my cheek, and I can't stop myself from leaning into it like a damn cat. It distracts me for a second before I can shake my head again. Instead, I lean forward and put my mouth close to his ear. I pinch his earlobe between my teeth and worry it a little before sucking it in and out of my mouth with a wet pop. What I mean is that you still owe me a big finish. He leans back far enough to look me in the eye. A hint of a blush is coloring his cheeks. I love every time he blushes. How he can take all his height and strength and muscle and raw alpha power and let it morph into something demure. It passes quickly though, and then his expression darkens. I believe I do. We run to the bedroom, discarding our clothes and trying not to trip as we go. He's behind me, biting my neck and sucking bruises into it, slowing me down. As soon as we reach the bed, I think he's going to start slow and build me up, just like before, but he doesn't waste any time. I'm already painfully hard. I had a throbbing boner for most of the afternoon. It went down during the mournful drive home, but now it's back in action and begging to be touched. Alpha growls, pushing me onto the bed face first and climbing up to straddle my legs. His weight pins me down and he takes a moment to run his hands over my ass, kneading and squeezing as he goes. Are you just gonna look at it, or do something about it? I grin at him over my shoulder. What I get is a sharp slap on the behind. It's not gentle. The warmth of it spreads tingles across my body and I'm half shocked that it didn't make me come. Either way, my cock is digging into the mattress and there's a trickle of slick running down my inner thigh. I can't stop myself from rolling my hips and moaning, looking for any friction to ease the ache. Alpha grabs my hip with one hand and pins me harder, using the other to take hold of my hair and jerk my head back towards him. I don't believe I gave you permission to speak, little Omega, or to take your own pleasure in hand, did I? If you want me to stop at any point, just say the word stop. Otherwise, I'm going to take every sound you make as a request for more. Understand? I say, yes, Alpha, but I can't, because his hands are moving quickly and too thick, strong fingers are suddenly twisting inside me. So instead, I moan fuck, Alpha, as he moves his hand. He fucks his fingers into my ass, covering us both in slick, and I feel like I'm about to burst into flames. All I get in response is another growl. Once he thinks I'm ready, Alpha rolls me over and grabs me by the hips. He pulls me up and I attempt to help, clambering gracelessly into his lap while trying not to knock my poor, swollen boner with a stray elbow. As soon as I'm in position, I feel him breach me. He guides his cock into me with steady, unrelenting pressure that makes me whine. By the time he's fully seated, I'm breathless, just panting in his lap. I feel like every aborted orgasm he almost gave me today is coming back all at once, just waiting to be released. And then he thrusts. I'm too tired to really help, so he wraps his arms around me, holding me in place by my shoulders and then fucking into me. The wet sounds of his cock moving in my slick fill the room, and all I can do is stay still and keep moaning. That's it, little Omega, such a good boy for me, he rasps into my ear. My cock bounces with every thrust and I can feel my orgasm finally building. Oh baby, I basically slur, so good. Gone come. Please. That's it. That's my good boy. His blue eyes gleam as he looks at me, and I try to close my mouth enough to smile, but I'm breathing too hard. Yes, yes, yes. I cry as he moves even faster. I'm almost there. Then the world turns upside down. Alpha grabs me by the hips and tosses me back onto the bed. He moves quickly, placing one thick thigh on either side of my hips, pinning my flailing arms with one hand and grabbing his own hard cock with the other. I can see him moving, jerking himself quickly as he leans over me. No, 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 tears its way out of my mouth as he comes. Hot seed splashes over my chest and face. I would be turned on by it if my body didn't feel like one live wire ready to spark. He grins down at me, looking more wolfish than I do right now. Those same strong hands wrap behind me again and lift me back into his lap like before. You're still an asshole, I mutter, using all my concentration to form the words. Everything is so tight and I'm so tired. He just shushes me and peppers me with kisses. He sinks his still hard cock back into me, not moving, just filling me, and I don't want to ever get out of his lap. Then, he reaches between us and takes me in hand. I hiss when he makes contact, but he keeps moving anyway. He wraps his fingers around me and jerks me, gentle but steady. I'm so overstimulated that it feels like sparks are igniting in my body at random. I'm twitching and whining, curving into and away from his body, gasping as my hips jerk suddenly. It feels like my body doesn't even belong to me anymore. I'm just floating above him. He keeps moving through it all, getting faster and faster, pausing only to wipe his own cum off of my chest or the slick from my ass to keep everything smooth and easy. I just want to come, but it feels like it's far away. Please, Alpha, please, I say. I think I might be crying. Shoo, sweet boy, he whispers. His other hand moves to pet my hair. You can do it, it's okay. Do it for me. Be my good boy. Just relax. I've got you. A weird arc of pain/pleasure hits me and my hips jerk again, hard. I can feel his cock twitching in response, not softening, but he still doesn't thrust. All he does is touch me. His other hand moves from my hair to touch me, running his blunt nails over my ribs and pinching my nipples, setting more sparks alight. Without warning, my orgasm finally hits me and I come like a fucking fire hose. My breath hitches and I can't even scream, but I want to. Every piece of me is on fire. Eventually, it's done, and all the pleasure and pain drains out of my body. Alpha cradles me to his chest, whispering soothing nonsense in my ear and smoothing his large hand over my back. I can't quite focus on anything, and before I know it, I'm laying back in bed. The comforter that's covered in my slick and cum gets pulled away and replaced with one that's dry and warm. Alpha holds that glass of water that I didn't drink to my lips, and whispers to me until I've finished it. Then he comes back with a glass of orange juice and repeats the process. I'm in and out, but I feel buoyant. The bed is like a cloud. Then, Alpha climbs into bed with me and pulls me close. His arms wrap around me and his face noses into my neck, inhaling deeply and then making a pleased little hum. He may kiss my cheek, but I'm already almost asleep, so I'm not sure if it's real or if I'm dreaming it. The next thing that happens makes me sure that I'm dreaming. My sex-addled brain thinks that Alpha squeezes me tight and whispers the words, I love you. In the morning, I wake slowly. I stretch my limbs, rubbing my skin against Alpha's warmth and working out all the kinks he put in me yesterday. Alpha groans and rolls over to paw at me. It takes a few minutes for us both to come to, but when we do, I head to the bathroom because I am so sticky and disgusting. I see William reaching for his phone like he always does when he wakes. I'm standing just out of sight in the en-suite bathroom, shower turned on and using a spare toothbrush to get myself minty fresh again. I almost don't hear William when he calls my name, but he says it again, louder, so I stick my head into the bedroom. Wah! I mumble around the toothbrush in my mouth. He looks at me, obviously worried, phone in hand. Kit texted me back while we were sleeping. They won't give me any details, but they warned me to be careful around Norman. They said that you, specifically, are in danger from him and should steer clear. I continue to stare at him, dumbfounded. What the hell? He opens his mouth to speak one more time. They said that it's a matter of life and death. Chapter 11. William. We've been laying low for almost 3 weeks. Jack hasn't mentioned leaving, and I'm terrified to bring it up, so it's become the elephant in the room. We don't talk about Norman anymore either, but Jack also sticks strictly to the orchard, and I only go into town when I have to for work. I've been getting caught up on work, but Jack seems pretty content to lay around the house a lot. Sometimes he shifts back to his wolf form and just sprawls in a patch of sunlight, and the sight of it makes me smile whenever I walk in the door. It seems like he's been on the road, or maybe on the run, for a very long time, and I'm happy to give him the chance to feel safe and lazy. The entire house smells of him now, and it makes me feel squishy and warm inside. And, every evening, we lie tangled together on the couch like an amorphous, many-limbed creature. We eat takeout or barbecue from Colton's ranch while we watch TV. Kissing normally starts after that, and then we head to the bed, or floor, or shower, and I relish every moment of getting to take my Omega apart. His breathy moans and quiet whines get more intoxicating every time I hear them. I make a study of his body, all that lean muscle and golden skin. I notice that he's filled out a little since he's been here. He must not have been eating regularly before. His amber eyes shine brighter and brighter every day. But right now, I'm away from my sweet boy. I told him I was going to town to sign some papers for my new business arrangement with that meadery, Jod. I can't take any of the credit for this. I've been too distracted by everything to put much thought into it, but Maddie really stepped up and worked out the details on my behalf. It'll be extremely beneficial for us both, I'm sure, even if the place sounds like it might be a little pretentious. We shall see. I already signed those papers online, though. I'm actually headed to the B to talk to Kit. They've continued to be enigmatic about the warning they gave me about Norman and Jack, and it's been burning an anxious hole in the back of my brain. I need to know how serious this is so I can either do something about it or finally stop being afraid to let Jack leave the house. He's not my damn house pet, but it's feeling like it. It's not a pleasant thought. Kit offers me a drink when I arrive and I decline, but they grab a bottle of wine and 2 glasses anyway. Come on, this is a conversation that requires alcohol, they say as they lead me out to the back patio. Besides, you absolutely have to try this new organic elderflower wine from that cute little vineyard down past Livingston. It's heavenly. I nod my assent as we reach the table in the most distant, isolated corner of the patio. There are several young couples out here, enjoying a coffee or glass of wine in the sunshine, but we're far enough away to be out of earshot. I fall heavily into my chair and slump into it. Everything that's happened this month sitting on me like a lead weight. Kit sits elegantly in the chair opposite, legs crossed, and pours each of us a very full glass of the pale, slightly cloudy wine. I can smell how cloyingly floral it is before I even get the glass to my mouth. My expectations are low for this. I should have known better than to doubt Kit though, because as soon as it hits my tongue it's like drinking a meadow doused in sunshine. It's sweet but balanced, and I immediately take another sip. I raise my eyebrows in surprise as I tell Kit, "You were right." They nod sagely. They don't rise to the bait of making small talk though, and something in my chest clenches tight as Kit gets right to the point. "You want to know what I meant when I said that Jack should be frightened of Norman?" It's not a question, but I nod anyway. Fear is already building in me. Kit leans back, wine glass in front of their face like a physical barrier. They look more nervous than I think I've ever seen them. "Norman's an asshole, we all know that," they start, "but you've probably only seen the side of him that's an asshole about animal welfare and best business practices. That's not all there is." There's a pause while they take a long swig of their wine, but I wait it out. Norman has a personal vendetta against certain types of people. A violent vendetta. I don't know what the root of it is, and I've tried to stay as far away from it as I can. Their expression is downturned as they speak and they won't even meet my eyes. My fear is now growing exponentially. I don't even know how he found out the truth, anyway. Their voice trails off for that last part, and I feel it wasn't really meant for me. So, I say slowly, you're saying that Jack is one of these types of people? Kit nods. I make a note to tread lightly for the rest of this conversation. Are you sure that Jack is one of them? I mean, can you tell me how you know? I can't, they say, bringing a hand up to rub their face. There's a smell, I can recognize it, but I can't tell you any more than that. I can feel my eyes widen as I drink in the implications of this. I can't stop staring at Kit, my eyes desperate to find something that confirms that they're saying what I think they're saying, and that maybe Jack and Kit have more in common than I thought. But their outer facade is perfectly maintained, as ever. So, I try to brush past the awkwardness. What kind of threat do you think Norman really is? Kit pinches their pink tongue between their teeth as they try to pick the right words. I know some other people who are like Jack. It's sort of a community, and there have been a lot of rumors around people being invited to Norman's property and never coming back. More rumors about people just being near his property, but still never coming back. I don't know for sure, but I think there could be some truth to it. He could take them and hiding them, or he could kill them. I don't know, but it's enough information to be worth keeping Jack the fuck away from him. He's not very subtle. Your new beau, it looks like he hasn't had a lot of experience blending in with other people. To someone who can sniff out the difference, he smells like he's screaming the truth out to everyone he passes. I keep nodding, trying to think of something to say. This is a lot to process. Honestly, William, Kit sighs, you're my friend, and I can already tell you're head over heels for that little twink. But it would be a lot safer for Jack if he got the hell out of this town. I must send him an angry look without meaning to, because he holds up his hands in surrender. I know it's not what you want to hear, and I'm 100% not telling you what to do with your life. I'm just saying. You should have all the information. Except for the information about what kind of person Jack is, and how you of all people can smell it on him, right? It comes out as a petulant growl and I immediately feel bad about it. But Kit seems unperturbed. I have to go back to work, my love. They stand and give me a soft kiss on the forehead. I wish I could make this decision easier for you. At least sit out here and enjoy the sunshine and the rest of the wine. I nod and flash them a thankful smile. There's a burning behind my eyes I'm trying to ignore, and I don't quite trust myself to speak. Kit casts me one more sympathetic look and then walks back inside. It's not clear how long I sit there sipping the wine, although I never finish the bottle. Staring into the distance, I try desperately, just desperately, to decide what to do. More than anything, I refuse to be the person who puts Jack in danger. He's already suffered enough for one lifetime, and every alpha instinct I have is screaming at me to protect him just as strongly as they were when we first met. Maybe even stronger. I can't force him to stay here and put himself in danger. But I am also pushing 40, and never in my life have I met someone I felt so connected to. I have no desire to spend the rest of my life without him. I even said I love him that day we went out, like a big-mouthed idiot. He was too asleep to hear, thank God, but I still said it. It shouldn't be possible for love to happen that fast, but in the privacy of my mind, I can't deny I truly meant it. I've always thought the concept of true mates was a marketing ploy by greeting card companies and the Hallmark Channel. But the way we just fit, the way even our scents fit, it gives me pause for thought. Maybe I should go with him. I've never lived anywhere but Honeysuckle Hills. It'd be tough to give up the orchard. My family's owned this place for a century, and it's the last piece of my parents I have in this world. I can't get my head around the enormity of the idea of letting all that go. Can I really give up everything in my life for Jack? Will I just end up resenting him? Maybe this is all just some stupid crush that's gotten way out of hand. How can I choose? I can't picture my life without him anywhere but here. The whole thing is giving me a splitting headache, and I decide to table the conundrum and go home to Jack. Maybe that will help me decide. I can't keep my distress off my face, so the second I get home, I blurt out everything. I tell Jack about the threat, and about how I'm sure Kit was alluding to Jack being a shifter. I tell him I do not know what to do, but as much as I can't bear the thought of leaving my home, I also can't bear the thought of leaving Jack, or of putting him in danger. Jack doesn't seem as distressed as I expected. He looks resigned. His golden eyes are large and sad, and he just wraps himself around me like a sloth, kissing my cheek and stroking my hair while we both take a few minutes to let it all sink in. In the end, it's Jack who breaks the silence. When he speaks, his voice is rough, like he's holding back a wave of emotion, but his face is frighteningly plain and neutral. He looks numb. "You've never asked me about my life before not since that one time back at the start," he rasps. I don't look at him, choosing instead to bury my face in the warm, familiar scent of his neck. "It seemed like you didn't want to talk about it. I thought you'd come to me when you were ready." Jack takes a deep breath. There's a tension hanging between us, but I know I have to wait it out. And then, with my face still hidden in the crook of his neck, he speaks. "When I was a pup, I still had a pack. We were nomadic, like most wolf shifters, but we were a family. They raised me right. But I was hot-headed and stupid." I suppressed the urge to kiss that word right out of his mouth. "One day, I got in a fight." He tells me the entire story. How his pack tended to pose as a biker gang so they could all travel around together without suspicion. How he was still just a kid when he learned how to hustle, pull, and pick pockets so they had enough money to get by. Fighting was par for the course, it sounded, but in this one fight, things got out of hand. He had been caught cheating by some brawny alpha who turned out to belong to an actual, real-life biker gang. His buddies had rallied around him, and Jack knew he was about to get the tar kicked out of him, as he describes it. He's weaker in his human form, so he made a split-second choice to shift. It was enough to get him away from them relatively unharmed, but he'd shifted right in front of a room full of humans. The cardinal rule. Jack had wandered around for a while to figure out a way to make it right, eventually crawling back home with his tail between his legs. But by the time he got back, it was too late. The biker gang had found his family and, outnumbering the wolves 5-1, slaughtered them all. They even left some graffiti behind with misspelled accusations of witchcraft and Satan worshippers. The way he tells it, if he hadn't been so self-indulgent, wandering around in the woods like a moody teenager, they would have all gotten away in time. Or he would have been there to fight with them, and die with them, at the very least. So, ever since then, he's been alone. He lives on the road, always moving. He scrapes for money and ends up spending most of his time in wolf form just for the sheer convenience of it. Normal people don't talk to him. He's protected himself from the constant harassment of unmated alphas looking for easy prey, and he's had no one to love him or support him for almost 10 years. I'm so in awe of him I could burst. He's so strong to have survived all that. All I want to do is wrap him in fuzzy blankets and put him to bed early every night for the next 10 years, holding him in my arms. Jack doesn't seem to agree with my interpretation of this at all. One or two tears shake loose, and he just goes on and on about how it's all his fault, and that's why he deserves nothing good. I try to comfort him and disagree with him, but nothing works. He's stuck on a permanent cycle of self-flagellation. Eventually I sit up, switching our positions and shushing him as I push his nose into my neck. He takes deep breath after deep breath, and then finally relaxes. "You're better off without me," he says in a muffled, hollow voice. "Don't you ever say that to me again." I jerk back to look him in the eye. Finding you on the side of the road has been the single greatest thing that's ever happened to me. No one's ever made me this happy. I take a deep breath and push through the fear. Every single day, I'm grateful I met you, Jack. I struggle for his last name, realizing it's never come up in the last 3 weeks and I still don't know it. "Culta," he says, huffing out a sharp laugh. "Jack Culta. You are beautiful and kind and generous to a fault. You seem determined to take on the burden of everything that's ever gone wrong in the world, and all I want is to take that burden from you. I've felt nothing like this before. I'd never believed in true mates, but if they're real, I think you're mine. His breath hitches and he stares at me with such raw vulnerability I crumble inside. I love you, Jack. He says nothing. Maybe this was a misstep. Maybe I've frightened him. I don't need him to say it back, of course, but I do really need him to say something. Instead, he leans forward and kisses me. Not a gentle kiss, but something savage, and I'm powerless to deny him anything that he wants. Things escalate quickly. Before I know what's happening, we're both naked and writhing on the floor next to the couch, once again failing to make it to the bedroom. He's spread out beneath me in open invitation, smelling of slick and pine trees. He's mumbling something that sounds like begging, but I take a minute to hear it over the roar of my desire and the wet sounds of us kissing. Please, Alpha, he moans as my fingers slip into his hole, make me feel you, please. Fuck me so hard I'll never forget it. His voice is already wrecked. I can feel my voice go hoarse as I drag in huge breaths. Every part of me feels overwhelmed by sensation. Anything you want, sweetheart, I rumble into his ear. Anything for my good boy. He makes a strange noise at that good boy, something that's a cross between a cry and a sob. I lean back the tiniest fraction to look at him, but he drags me back down, as much of our skin pressed together as humanly possible. Please, he gasps, just fuck me. Something comes over me, and all I can focus on is giving him what he wants. His legs are wrapped around my hips and it doesn't take much to slip my fingers out of him and replace it with my cock. He told me he wants to feel it, so I'm not as gentle as I would normally be. I push into him with one hard thrust, and he lets out a cry. Tell me if it's too much, I whisper, and he nods into me where our faces are pressed together. We're both breathing too hard to keep kissing, so we share breath instead. I fuck him, hard and fast, and all he does is beg for me to go harder. His hands move up and down my back, leaving deep scratches that make me want to purr. I have one arm wrapped around his muscular back and the other hand gripping his ass, using both for leverage to hold him as close to me as possible. It only takes me a few minutes to get him screaming yes, Alpha, at the top of his lungs. It spurs me on, and my last few thrusts are so hard I swear the house rocks with us. I love you so much, baby, I babble as I feel my knot swell. You're my good boy, I just want to fuck you, breed you, keep you safe forever. You're perfect. I can feel when Jack's body stiffens and his cum pulses hot where his dick has been trapped between our stomachs. He clenches around me and my knot finally fills and takes its place inside him. He keeps groaning as I pour my cum into him. I get a brief flash of what he would look like, belly swollen with pups, and it would make me smile if I could move my face right now. Everything happens so quickly. We stay awake in silence, just cuddling, waiting for my knot to go down. As soon as I pull out of him, we both get up and head to the bathroom to clean up. He doesn't speak, and neither do I, but I touch him every chance I get throughout our shower and getting into bed. He leans into all of it with desperation, like a man in the desert drinking water. It's perfect. He's perfect, and I love him. As I fall asleep, I feel secure that we'll be able to find a solution to this situation together. But when I wake up, the bed is empty, and Jack is gone. Chapter 12. Jack. I don't know how long I stand in that room, watching Alpha's chest rise and fall as he sleeps. Just looking at him reminds me of how warm and strong he is. How good it feels when he wraps me in his arms and lets me breathe in his scent. I'm already feeling a wave of sadness at the thought I'll never be able to experience that comfort again. But, of course, it's not like I deserve it. I need to keep Alpha safe, and I can't even consider letting him leave his whole, beautiful life behind for me. I'm the one who always causes problems. I'm the one that fat gasbag is potentially hunting. Alpha doesn't deserve to be within 1,000 miles of all my poisonous bullshit. So I'm leaving. It's for the best. He's sleeping heavily, exhausted from a stressful day, his last stressful day caused by me, I hope, so it's easy to slip out of the house without waking him. I know I should slip straight into my wolf form for the sake of stealth, but I'm not quite ready to let go yet. I want to enjoy just being Jack for a few more hours. The Jack that William loves. Loves. He's not thinking straight, obviously. But it's nice to pretend that he really meant it. And so far, my body remembers him. Every bite mark and everywhere he thrust into me aches with the memory of him. I want it to stay like that forever. Shifting will only accelerate that healing and erase him from my life even faster. So I start off on the road, making the long walk into town. It's still early, not even 11 p.m., but this is a quiet town, so I don't expect anyone to pass me. I just put one foot in front of the other, dressed in clothes I stole from Alpha's closet that still smell like him, a backpack slung over my shoulder with the few things he'd given me. A phone, not that I really need it. Leftovers from the dinner he'd made me the day before yesterday, and the blanket that was my bed for the first few days in the house. I shouldn't have stolen it, but I couldn't resist. Something to carry that memory with me was what I wanted. I'm walking along that dark, empty two-lane before I get to anything that even looks like town. It's not the cute rows of houses filled with people living their picturesque lives. This is something more my style. It's a divey place, just a bar on the edge of town. There's a long row of motorcycles parked out front, feels like an alarming mixture of giant red flag and giant welcome banner. I pause for a second to take a deep breath, and when I let it out, I walk towards the door. My shoulders are set, and I'm going in. Whatever happens, it'll be less than I deserve. I'm not going to start trouble, but I won't exactly be sad about it if it happens. It's been too long since I've been in a real fight. The bar is called Dirty Dogs, which makes me snort as I step inside. The front of the building is covered in old wood siding, like most biker bars, and there are some dim white lights strung up over the name. The windows are dirty, and mostly covered in posters advertising things like metal nights, 2 for 1 buffalo wings, and some kind of motorcycle swap meet. Inside, it's just as familiar. I could be anywhere in America. The room is filled by a low din. The patrons are mostly men, a lot of them alphas, most of them decked out in black and leather and drinking cheap beer. The bar is on the right-hand side, wrapping all the way around that side of the building. There's only one bartender, an older woman with leathery skin and an expression that says come have a drink, but also there's at least one shotgun within my reach right now. I sit at the bar, settling into a worn-in, familiar routine. I order a beer from the bartender, paying with the few dollars I have stuffed in my backpack. There are several dimly lit pool tables at the back of the place that tell me I'll have more money soon. I scrub a restless hand over my hair. I've got the whole night to think about what an idiot I am and what the fuck I'm doing. No need to rush. I take a long swig of my lukewarm beer and settle in. This is for the best. I'm doing this for William, no matter how shitty it feels. Chapter 13. William. Jack is gone. It's the middle of the night, I'm wide awake, and Jack is gone. At first, I wasn't sure what woke me, but the bed feels cold and empty. I called for Jack to see if he was in the bathroom, but no answer. So I dragged my sleepy self out of bed, pulled on some sweatpants and a t-shirt, and looked around the house. Jack was nowhere to be found. Even his scent was fainter than normal, and as soon as I found a single piece of paper with the words "I'm sorry Alpha" scratched on it, I figure out what's going on. That stupid, impulsive son of a bitch. I'm going to strangle him. I can feel myself standing taller as the anger takes hold. There's regular anger at the audacity of Jack taking it on himself to do whatever he thinks is best for me, without even letting me have a say. But it's mixed with something more primal and irrational. My inner alpha is furious someone would take Jack away from me, would put my omega in danger. The fact Jack is the one putting himself in danger doesn't change me wanting to slap the stupid out of him for doing it. All it sees is red, and all it wants to do is tear through everything that stands in between me and my sweet boy. If I thought he'd left because he didn't really want to be here, I would let it go. Of course. I'd be heartbroken, but it would be his choice. I know exactly what's going through his mind right now, though. All that talk of him being broken and a danger to everyone around him, all the times he begged me last night to fuck him so hard he'd feel it forever. It paints a pretty clear picture. There isn't even time to register what I'm doing before I'm climbing into my car, keys and wallet in hand and whatever jacket I could reach slung onto the seat next to me. The night air is already chilling me through my thin t-shirt. I do not know how much clothing Jack took with him when he went, and whether he's in his human form or his wolf pelt. He could be anywhere, cold and scared and continuing to let himself be just a vibrating ball of self-hatred. Not on my watch. It's a little after midnight, and I have no plan better than drive around and look for Jack. So, that's what I go with. I check the woods between my property and Maddie's, but I can't find him. I even get out to lurk around Maddie's place in case Jack is shifted and curled up in one of the warm barns or storage rooms. I don't think Maddie will mind, but I do my best not to make any noise. It's very possible that of the two of us I was the most startled when Maddie popped out of nowhere and caught me lurking. "William?" he asks in a sleepy voice, already in his PJs with a thick red flannel shirt over them, holding a bottle of dark beer and a kitchen carving knife. "Oh shit," I say. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to wake you. I was just looking for something." What could you possibly be looking for next to an apiary in the middle of the night? His accent gets stronger the more drunk and or sleepy he gets, so the way the sentence comes out I'm guessing this is not his first beer of the evening. "I'm looking for," I trail off as I try to find a simple way to explain it. There's no chance of that though, so I just do my best. "You didn't get the chance to meet my new guest, did you?" "No," the big man says, rubbing at one of his eyes, "but Kid told me you were shacking up with some twink that looks like a cross between David Beckham and Miley Cyrus, whatever that means. Oh, and also that you looked like the kid had managed to pull that permanent stick out of your ass." I don't know. I try to ignore them when they're rambling about town gossip. I can't stop myself from sighing and rolling my eyes. Well, I can't totally say it's not true, but I take great offense at the characterization. Maddie gestures to the low, stone wall that wraps around the aviary and we both take a seat. He also hands me his beer and I take a long swallow before handing it back. He's been with me for a little over 3 weeks. I met him by random, and he's been on his own for so long, I just wanted to help him out. But as soon as we were sharing the same space, things got complicated. It was like everything just fell into place. Our scents mingled immediately and everything smelled like home. Everything I found out about him just made me care about him more, and I know he felt the same way about me. "Okay," Maddie rumbles, "so, why are you out here in the middle of the night like a crazy person, instead of at home snuggled up against your little midlife crisis?" "I'm in my 30s, Maddie." "It's hardly a midlife crisis," I snark at him. "But this isn't the point. Basically, something happened, and he left. Not because he wanted to, but because he thinks it's best for me, like he's toxic or something and drags everyone else down. I don't understand how someone who's so very deeply good can think so little of themselves, but that's what's happening. And now I can't find him and I'm scared he's somewhere unsafe, as well as so fucking furious because he made this whole decision without even talking to me about it." Maddie raises his eyebrows when I say the F word. I'm not really known for swearing a lot, but it feels like the occasion calls for it. "Okay," he tips back the rest of the beer, rubs his temples and looks at me. "Let me get this straight. You care about him, and think you're together?" "I mean, I know true mates don't really exist, but it just feels so right," I equivocate. "What do you mean true mates don't exist?" Maddie looks shocked. "They absolutely exist. Look, back home, true mates isn't just a marketing scam. I know Americans like to turn everything into a capitalist nightmare, but we really, really believe in the idea. Sometimes people meet, and it's just instant. They were fated to be together. You don't have to believe in God or the gods or whatever, it's just some inexplicable part of biology. Nature has evolved this way, and anyone who won't abide by what nature wants from them is a goddamn moron." He looks at me pointedly. And keeps looking. I feel like a bug under a microscope doing my best not to shift in my seat. I'm not used to being intimidated by omegas, but Maddie is 6 feet 2 inches of beefcake, and when he turns that disappointed growl on me, it makes me feel like a little kid getting scolded. So, you don't think I'm a lunatic for driving around in the middle of the night, trying to bring him home? I ask, with a little trepidation. Matty shakes his head. No, brother. If he doesn't want to be with you, you can't chase him, but if he's just running because he's afraid, it's your job to find him and set him straight. Show him how much you care about him. Make him feel safe. His words set a fire in me. Not the irrational anger of when I woke alone, but a real, well-thought-out current of motivation. I stand abruptly, and Matty slowly rises to join me. You're right, I breathe, adrenaline already pumping. You're right. Thank you, friend. Thank you. He smiles and reaches out to clasp my forearm in his giant paw, and I return the gesture. Thank you, Matty. I'm sorry I disturbed your, whatever this is. I gesture to the outfit and the beer, and all he does is shrug. Go get your man, William. If he is how you described him, I bet he won't have gone very far. He's probably killing time, hoping you'll show up. I turn around and hustle back to the car, waving a goodbye to him as I go. And tell me how it ends. He shouts after me. I feel a small smile creep onto my face as I climb into the car and turn the engine back on. I have to find Jack. I've looked everywhere. Almost all the businesses are closed for the night, and most of the houses are dark and quiet. At some point, it rained, and it makes the whole thing seem even more macabre. Jack's barely even seen much of the town. Where would he go? There's a lump in my throat when I contemplate whether or not I should check Norman's farm. Please, God, don't make me go there. Don't let that be where he is. And then it hits me. I wasn't thinking about it, but I've been looking at all the places where I would feel the most safe. Not where Jack would go. Nothing familiar or comfortable for him is going to feel safe. So I try to think of where I would feel the most uneasy and in danger in this whole damn town. It's not a long drive to Dirty Dogs. I've never been in there before, because it definitely looks like the kind of place where a quiet alpha wearing slacks and a button-down wouldn't really fit in. But Jack probably would. At least they're still open. I get out of the car and burst through the doors more dramatically than I intended, but it's so loud inside that no one notices. I look frantically around the room to try to spot him in the dim light. I have to push through several large, loud men laughing with each other to get to the other side of the room. The whole place stinks of rotting lime juice and stale beer, and it's so thick I couldn't pick up Jack's scent even if I tried. But, just as I'm feeling panic grip me, I see him. He's sitting in a chair in the corner, tucked away behind the pool tables. There's a stack of empty beer bottles around him and his head is in his hands. It breaks my heart. The urge to sweep him up and take him home is going to swallow me alive. I rush over to him and kneel at his feet, saying his name to get his attention. He lifts his head slowly, red-faced and bleary-eyed, like maybe he's been crying. He still looks beautiful. He looks like he's mine. Then I see the bruise on his face. It's high on his cheekbone, and I could tell it was fresh even if I didn't know he was bruise-free a few hours ago. It makes all that anger from earlier rise in me, and I can taste the bile in the back of my throat. Alpha, he asks, obviously feeling the effects of those beers and potentially a minor head injury. You fucking idiot, I hiss, my voice louder than I meant it to be, you insensitive, inconsiderate, reckless asshole. What? He looks up at me and I realize I must have stood back up while I was yelling. I know I'm towering over him, and I know it's unfair to frighten him like this, but I can't help myself because I've spent the past 2 hours being absolutely terrified and it has to pour out of me somehow. Why would you think you can just decide for the both of us? Run out on me in the middle of the night? Did you not even consider the fact that I'm invested in the situation as well? If you really want to live without me, I'll take you somewhere myself and give you the money to get started, but I'm not blind enough to think that's what's happening here. My voice keeps getting louder, and, even in this biker bar, people are noticing us. Jack just sniffs and sinks to his knees in front of me. His face is so open, so fragile, I feel my anger crank down a few notches. Please, Alpha, he's not sobbing, but he's not far off, I'm sorry. I just wanted you to be safe. You deserve so much better than me, and I know that if I stay here you'll end up dying because of it. I couldn't stand it. It was making me feel crazy. He drops his face as he finishes, letting out a real sob now and wiping ineffectually at his eyes. That gets everyone's attention. I can feel a lot of eyes on me, and I'm aware that if you don't know the circumstances, I'm probably not coming out well right now. Stand, sweetheart, I say, deliberately softening my tone and reaching down to pull him up by the elbow. He's just crying now and I want to hug him, but as soon as I reach my arms around him he panics and pushes me away. No, he says, tears on his face but his eyes suddenly clear, I'm a mess. You don't deserve this. You need to just let me leave. He breaks away from my outstretched arms and moves away from me. He practically runs for the front door and, before I know it, I'm just standing there like a fool, mouth open, everyone in the bar staring at me. Chapter 14. Jack. I don't know when it started raining, but it feels like just my luck. I wrap my arms around myself as I run outside. I don't even know where to go. I don't know how I feel or what I want. All I can name is that part of me wants to run and never have to be responsible for William getting hurt, and the rest of me wants to go back there, throw myself into his arms and never come out. I'm determined not to cry anymore because I'm not a baby, but it's difficult. I stand there in the parking lot, already drenched by the rain, looking out at the empty landscape in front of me. I feel like I've been hollowed out and abandoned, totally empty. Jack! Alpha's voice calls after me. Of course he wouldn't just let me go. Jack, it's freezing out here and you're getting wet. Come back inside. I turn around and stare at him. The numbness takes over my whole body, and all I do is sway with the wind. He jogs the last few steps until he's standing in front of me. His hands reach for my arms, but then he catches himself, not touching me. I can't imagine what a wreck I look like right now. Sweetheart, he starts, and I want to whine at the warm sound of it. I'm sorry I yelled. I didn't mean to. I've just been so worried and scared, and then seeing that bruise on your cheek made me think all my fears were coming true. I shouldn't have yelled. I sniff back some snot that's mixing with the rain and keep my eyes trained on the ground. My inner wolf is close, wanting to posture in front of him in a full bow. He reaches one hand out, slowly, like I'm a wild animal, and then tilts my face up to look at him. His fingers reach up and land on my bruise, feather-light. A shiver runs through me and I know it's not from the cold. What happened, my love? He whispers. Who hurt you? I turn my face to the side and just out of his reach. It's no big deal, I sniff again. I must have gotten soft after staying with you. Some guy almost caught me cheating at pool. No one had any proof, so they didn't kick me out. He just clocked me one and called it even. It was fair enough. I stare at the tree line at the edge of the parking lot, but everything just looks like a blur. I'm toxic, Alpha, I say, still not looking at him. You don't want me. Jack. I didn't drive all over town looking for you because I don't want you. And the last month hasn't been the happiest time in my life because I don't want you. I know you've got a lot on your mind, but that doesn't give you the right to choose for me. I want you. I want you so much I feel like I could burst with it. And just because you think you're cursed doesn't mean I have to believe it. I don't know what it is, but all I know is that with you, everything feels right. There's so much passion and confidence in his voice, I can't stop myself from turning to look at him. His eyes are wide and his expression is sincere. He looks just like the man I've been obsessed with since I got my first whiff of him or felt his powerful hands picking me up. But then I pick up on something he just said. What do you mean, you don't know why everything feels right? He leans back, furrowing his brow and staring at me. I mean, there's no rational explanation for it, it's just how I feel. Yeah, but we're still true mates. I mean, that's why it feels like that. William's eyebrows climb up his forehead and he keeps looking blank, so I continue with a sigh. Oh my God, humans. I swear, you can't tell the difference between the smell of an ass and a flower bed. How do you even survive like this? Shock turns to a slight frown, but I keep going. True mates, Alpha. We're fated. Our body chemistries match up perfectly, and they recognize their mate the moment we met. Well, for me the moment we met, for you it was probably the moment you met me as a human. Alpha still looks shell-shocked, so he takes a minute to answer. So it's all true, he murmurs. You know, I didn't even wait for you to be a human. I felt it back when you were a wolf. I just couldn't figure out what it was I was feeling. All I knew was that I needed to keep you safe. I can feel a wry smile on my face. Oh, Alpha. Always so predictable. Protect, 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 it's like a banner ad running across the inside of his skull. Oh. Oh. The wheels are still turning. But then, why would you want to leave if you knew we were fated to be together? The urge to shuffle my feet and look at the ground is strong, but I resist it. I don't know. I just kept picturing you getting hurt because of me, and that felt like it was fate, too. I couldn't stand it. Staring him in the eyes, I continue. Honestly, I don't think I would have been able to go through with it. Should have left town hours ago, but I sat in this shitty bar, getting sauced and waiting for you to come for me. It wasn't exactly the daring escape I'd been picturing. Oh, my little Omega, he sighs. I can see when he decides, and then he leans forward and kisses me. Softly, just a small kiss, but so warm. I will not give you up that easily, my love. Whatever's going to happen, we'll deal with it together. His warm hands frame my face and I let myself sink into it a little. This whole thing has been so exhausting. I just want it to be over. If Alpha isn't scared to be with me, then I can learn to trust him on that. Hopefully. He wraps his arms around me, pulling me close and squeezing me tight. I feel him brush a kiss against my forehead as I bury my face in his chest and let it all happen. I can already feel the fear and adrenaline drain out of me, leaving me shivering in its wake. Come on, my love, he says, voice warm and deep, like whiskey poured into coffee. You're freezing and tired. Let's just go home. I can take care of you and you can take care of me. How does that sound? "'S'all right," I mumble into his chest. He keeps one arm around my shoulder and turns me gently toward the car. That's my good boy. Epilogue. Jack. The early morning light streams in through the window, making a warm spot where I lie on the bed. It makes me stretch out my legs, curling and uncurling my toes, feeling my body slowly shift back to wakefulness. I don't want to open my eyes yet. Except, my beautiful Alpha is lying next to me. I can feel his steady presence without even looking. The smell of fireplaces and rosemary, the even sound of his breath, it makes me feel even warmer than the sunlight. That's enough motivation to open my eyes. I stare at his face, so handsome even with the little crow's feet and stress lines around his eyes. His skin is even more tan and olive than when we first met. He's been spending most days out in the fields, in between tending to my increasingly needy demands as I've slowly turned from a svelte, lone wolf into a bred-up, fat and happy little milk cow. I tell him I feel fat and ugly sometimes, and I do, but I think I secretly love it more than anything. I've always loved how full he makes me feel. Being full up with his pups is more than I could ever have hoped for. And once they're born, the house will be full of life as well. Stop watching me sleep, he grumbles. His eyes are still closed and he's keeping his voice serious, but I can see he's fighting back a smile. I'm just waiting for my big, powerful Alpha to wake and take care of me. I'm over here all alone, trying to put together the building blocks of new life, and you're just over there snoring away. We're both grinning now. I seem to remember having a little something to do with all that life you've got brewing inside of you. As he speaks, he snakes his arms out under the covers and drags me close, until we're pressed together, my pregnant belly trapped between us. Alpha kisses down my neck and chest, eyes still closed. He's taking deep breaths, sending me over and over, and the arousal is pouring off of him. There has never really been slack in the bedroom department for us, but ever since he put his pups in me he's been insatiable. He hovers around me, all must protect my mate and must fuck my mate. I have to kick him out to work or he'll just stay in and kiss me all day. Yes, yes, I love it. This is the happiest I've been since I was a little kid. He pushes me onto my back and climbs on top of me, his hips rolling and his big, stiff cock rubbing against my pelvis. I have the sudden urge to get on my knees and swallow his cock, but it's been a few weeks since I've been quite that nimble. That's okay though, because we found something new that's just as good. As much as he loves to fuck me so hard I lose control of my bladder, he goes absolutely insane for fucking me so hard I lactate. There's something completely feral in it. The scent of my milk, the feeling of both our bodies wrapped around our pups. It's indescribable. My neck has been thoroughly mauled by his mouth now, so he's moving on to my nipples. He's light to begin with, just nipping and licking, but they're so sensitive it feels like an electric current is flowing through me. And I may not see my dick anymore with the damn bump in the way, but I can definitely feel it, rock hard and leaking onto our stomachs. Alpha isn't the only one who's horny all the time, though. All he's done is kiss me and the sheets beneath me are soaked. I don't even need prep right now, I'm just open and waiting. Alpha slides out of his boxers, holds my hips down against the mattress with one hand and uses the other to guide his weeping cock into my hole. My body welcomes him in, and the feeling of it makes me feel loose and floaty. Neither of us have the patience for slow and sweet these days, especially not for the first fuck of the day. He wastes no time in working up a rhythm, pistoning his hips and thrusting into me hard enough the headboard bangs into the wall. I'm moaning and babbling already, mostly just some combination of fuck and alpha and please over and over. My chest feels taut with milk, nipples straining up towards him. Alpha wraps his mouth over the scar from my mating bite, still relatively fresh. He bites, not hard enough to break the skin, but enough to make me whine and squirm at the warm feeling of belonging soaks into me. I can feel moisture beading on my nipples, begging to be released. I've lost all my words by this point, but the needy, high-pitched sound that's coming out of me catches his attention. He breaks away from my neck to look at me. Alpha's eyes are wide open now, bright and alert, and he has this radiant glow to his expression that makes my heart melt. Or it will make me melt once I've gotten some other parts of me taken care of. Alpha licks his lip, ducks his head, and sucks my nipple into his mouth. He uses one hand to massage my swollen chest. His thrusts slow a little, but they become more focused, sliding deep into me, grazing past my prostate every time, and then pulling out until he's tugging at my rim before he slams back in. Just when I think I can't take it anymore, he sucks. William. The sweet taste of my mate's milk bursts into my mouth, filling me so quickly it trickles down my chin. I keep sucking and licking, trying to tease out as much of the liquid as I can. I play with the other nipple with my fingertips rolling and tugging at the sensitive bud. It's weeping milk. It runs down my arm in slick trails, and I can't stop myself from switching over to taste it, too. Jack is making those noises that make me feel like I've reached nirvana. Breathy noises that catch in his throat, too high-pitched to be deliberate, just the overwhelming pleasure pouring out of his mouth without restraint. I had thought Jack was relaxed and free with me when we first met, but it's gotten better and better ever since. He loves to writhe underneath me, letting himself go completely and just burning with sensation. Like now, his skin is hot and moist against mine. His slick hold tightens around my cock with every thrust like he wants to hold me inside of him, and the joy of getting to tease his body ready to feed our pups when they come is exhilarating. He's almost dry now, and I scrape my teeth over the tender flesh as he moans and arches his back and presses up into me. The look on his face is pure bliss, and I haven't even made him come yet. I release his nipple and lean back, angling myself to push into him as deeply as possible. I grab hold of his swollen cock, but instead of stroking him, I just wrap my hand around him. My fingers are long and I can cup his balls and his cock in one hand. I love the way his manhood looks when I cradle it. The light pressure seems to have enough of an effect on him. His groan turns into a scream and he thrusts once into my hand, comes spilling over my hand until my skin shines with it. As fast as I can, I lean over and capture his open mouth in a kiss. I thrust my tongue deeply into his mouth so it feels like we're falling into each other. The combination of the feeling of more of his milk spreading across my chest and the small, aborted jerking of his hips as he rides out the aftershocks is all I need to lose control of my knot. I swell inside him, trapping myself in place and pulsing my spin into him. It takes more than half an hour for my knot to go down. We don't talk, we just lie together, existing in a peaceful silence. There was a long time where I didn't believe I was going to have this. Between the differences between me and Jack and the threat of him being caught by outsiders as a shifter, it looked like a risky enterprise. But we've made it work. We live our lives and, as usual, I spend most of my time on the orchard. We go out to visit the friends, and Jack can hang out at that biker bar whenever he gets nostalgic. We stay away from Norman's property. Keeping in touch if Jack's out by himself, we keep ourselves circled tight with people who care about us. My friends have welcomed Jack with open arms. He's currently enjoying the instinctive need to protect those able to carry children. Many gifts have been left at our doorstep. Half a dozen extra blankets are scattered around his nest, but the one he laid on when he was still a wolf, recuperating on my living room floor, that is the one Jack drapes himself with when he wants to feel safe. It's still life, and life has flaws. But throughout all of it, I know he belongs to me. I get the joy of protecting him and spending every day showing him how loved he really is. And he gets to know I belong to him. I belonged to him the second I laid eyes on his beautiful, amber eyes, even if I didn't know it at the time. My little Omega. My good boy. My true mate.